A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Alright, we are doing something a little different today. We're kicking off a 6-part series we're calling Time Management for People Who Hate Time Management. This is specifically for the ADHD brains out there. The ones who have a graveyard of half-used planners and productivity apps they downloaded at 3 in the morning and never opened again. And because we wanted a real-world perspective on this, we actually dragged our producer out from behind the mixing desk. Hilbert Flumingtop, our long-suffering producer, is joining us on the mic today.
I'm only here because you promised me this would actually explain why I can't remember to use a calendar, despite having one on every device I own. Also, my 10-month-old anteater just ate the corner of my physical planner, so I'm officially out of options. It's a literal paper trail of failure, Corn.
I'm Herman Poppleberry, and I have to say, seeing Hilbert's anteater use a moleskine as a snack was the highlight of my week. But it's a perfect metaphor, right? Life happens, and usually it happens right on top of the systems we try to build. We buy the 30 planner thinking it's a magic wand, but the wand doesn't work if the anteater eats it. By the way, today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 1.5 Flash, which is helping us synthesize all this neurobiology.
It really is. So, to get us started, I want to read a note from Daniel that really set the stage for this series. He wrote, "I've spent my life being told to just try harder, or just use a list. But for an ADHD brain, the gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it feels like a physical wall. Why does willpower fail us so spectacularly? And how do we build habits that don't feel like a second job?"
That is the million-dollar question. That wall Daniel mentioned is real. If you have ADHD, your brain is literally wired to resist the very habits that would make your life easier. It's not a character flaw. It's not laziness. It's a feature of your neurobiology. When people say, just set a routine, it's like telling someone with no legs to just walk more. It ignores the structural reality of the situation.
Exactly. Except the person with no legs doesn't get called unmotivated for not walking. I feel like I spend 80% of my energy just trying to start a task, and by the time I do, I'm too exhausted to actually finish it. I'll sit there staring at the record button for 20 minutes, knowing I need to press it, but my brain is just buffering. It's like a spinning beach ball on an old Mac.
That's the executive function bottleneck, Hilbert, and that's where we need to start. Most habit advice, think of the stuff you see on social media, is built for neurotypical brains. It relies on the idea that if you do something for 21 days, it becomes automatic. But for the ADHD brain, automatic is a myth. We don't have that autopilot mode in the same way.
It really is. In the neurotypical brain, there's a consistent dopamine release when a task is completed. You check the box, you feel good, the brain says, let's do that again tomorrow. But research, specifically some 2024 neuroimaging studies from the University of Michigan, shows that ADHD brains have 30 to 40% lower dopamine transmission in the prefrontal cortex. That's the area responsible for executive function and habit formation.
Think of it like a car engine. A neurotypical brain has a self-starter. You turn the key, the spark hits the fuel, and you're idling, ready to go. An ADHD brain often has a broken ignition. You're turning the key and hearing that click, click, click sound, but the engine won't turn over. You have the fuel, the desire to do the work, but the spark isn't reaching the engine.
So what you're saying is, I'm not a broken car, I just have a bad starter motor. Because I've spent a lot of money on engine repairs that were really just new planners.
And because that starter motor is unreliable, we rely on novelty to jumpstart the car. Instead of a reward, the ADHD brain often finds routine tasks understimulating. It's not just that you forget to do the habit, it's that your brain is actively seeking novelty to compensate for that dopamine deficit. Consistency feels like a prison to a brain that craves sparks.
It's a very boring prison. I can plan a morning routine that involves meditation and a healthy breakfast, and by day 3, my brain is screaming for anything else. Usually, that anything else is looking up the history of Victorian plumbing at 6 in the morning. I now know more about 19th century S-bends than I do about my own schedule for the day.
Which is fascinating but doesn't help you get the show edited. And this is why willpower fails. We think of willpower as this infinite well we can just dip into if we're serious enough. But willpower is a finite cognitive resource. It's a function of the prefrontal cortex. If your executive functions are already taxed just trying to manage time blindness or sensory input, you're starting the day with a half-empty tank.
And the average person makes 35,000 decisions a day. For someone with ADHD, those decisions are more taxing. You're not just deciding what to eat. You're fighting the paralysis of choice, because every option feels equally weighted. By the time you get to, I should write in my journal, your brain has already hit 0. You've reached decision fatigue 40% faster than a neurotypical person.
Wait, how does decision fatigue play into the wall? Is that why I can't decide which socks to wear and then suddenly it's 11 a.m. and I'm still in my bathrobe?
Precisely. To your brain, the decision of which socks is consuming the same amount of willpower fuel as should I start the tax return. Your brain doesn't have a good sorting mechanism for priority. It treats every incoming request as high priority. So if willpower is the wrong tool, what's the right one? How do we stop redeciding to do the habit every single day?
We have to talk about implementation intentions. This is the if-then formula. Instead of saying, I will plan my day, which is vague and requires a huge amount of activation energy, you create a specific trigger. If situation X occurs, then I will behavior Y.
It sounds simple, but the science is wild. A 2023 meta-analysis in the Journal of Attention Disorders showed that implementation intentions increase habit formation success rates by 200 to 300% in ADHD populations. It works because it offloads the start command from your internal executive function to an external environmental cue. It takes the deciding out of the equation.
Okay, but I've tried if-then stuff. If I sit down at my desk, I'll open my to-do list. What actually happens is, if I sit down at my desk, I notice a cool rock I found, and then I spend 20 minutes wondering what kind of mineral it is. Or I notice the dust on the monitor, and suddenly I'm deep cleaning the office.
That's because your trigger isn't specific enough, Hilbert. Sitting at your desk is a broad state. It's an environment with too many distractions, like your rock collection. You need a micro-trigger. Something like, if I take my last sip of coffee, then I will open my calendar. The physical act of the last sip is the anchor. It's a singular, momentary event.
It's about bypassing the should I do this now phase. When you use an implementation intention, you aren't making a choice in the moment. You've preloaded the response. It's like a line of code for your brain. If X, then Y. No debate required. Think of it as an automated script for your life. When the condition is met, the program runs.
But what happens when the then part feels too heavy? Like, if I finish my coffee, then I will record the intro. My brain still sees record the intro as a massive, scary mountain. I can feel the resistance growing before I even swallow the coffee.
Then you haven't broken down the then enough. The then should be an action that takes less than 10 seconds. If I finish my coffee, then I will turn on the microphone power strip. That's it. You aren't committing to recording. You're just committing to the switch. Once the power is on, the activation energy required to record is significantly lower.
This leads directly into habit stacking. This was popularized by James Clear, but for ADHD, it's practically a survival strategy. You take a habit you already do, something that is truly automatic like brushing your teeth or putting on your shoes, and you stack the new, difficult habit right on top of it. You're hitching a ride on a pre-existing neural pathway.
The key is that the anchor habit has to be something you don't even think about. Hilbert, what's one thing you do every single morning without fail, no matter how chaotic the anteater is?
I put on my glasses. Otherwise, I'd walk into walls. It's the first thing I do when I reach for the nightstand.
Perfect. So your stack is, after I put on my glasses, I will put my phone in the charging station in the kitchen. That's it. You're using the established neural pathway of glasses on to pull the phone away, habit along with it. You aren't remembering to move the phone, you're just extending the glasses routine.
But what if I forget the stack? I put my glasses on, and then I immediately see the anteater trying to eat the curtains and the phone. Part of the stack just evaporates. I'm already halfway to the curtains before I realize I'm still holding my phone.
That's where environmental design comes in. You need a physical reminder at the point of the stack. Maybe you put a small sticker on your glasses case that says, "Pone," or you put the phone charger right next to where you keep your glasses. You can't rely on your memory to remember the new habit. You have to make the environment scream the instruction at you. If the environment doesn't prompt you, the ADHD brain will find something else to look at.
And here's where most people mess up habit stacking. They try to stack something too big. They say, after I brush my teeth, I will do 30 minutes of yoga. That's not a stack, that's a mountain. For the ADHD brain, we need the minimum viable routine, or MVR. We need to lower the bar until it's on the floor.
This is huge. ADHD brains are prone to all or nothing thinking. If we can't do the full, perfect version of a routine, we feel like failures and scrap the whole thing. The MVR is the absolute bare-bones version of a habit that still counts as a win on a high-symptom day. It's the version you do when you're sick, tired, or the anteater is having a crisis.
So, if my goal is journaling, and I'm having a day where the baby is crying and the anteater is chewing on the Wi-Fi cables, what's the MVR? Because Dear Diary is not happening in that scenario.
The MVR is open the journal and write the date. That's it. If you do that, you won. You maintain the identity of being a person who journals. You kept the neural groove alive without needing the executive function to actually write a deep entry. You're keeping the pilot light on so the whole system doesn't go cold.
It's about lowering the activation energy. We have to address the wall of awful, which is a term coined by Brendan Mahan. It's that emotional barrier made of past failures, shame, and frustration. Every time you try to start a task and fail, you add another brick to that wall. The MVR is how you climb over the wall without needing a ladder. You make the task so small it's harder to skip it than to do it.
I like that. It's like tricking my brain into thinking the task isn't actually work. But doesn't that feel like cheating? If I only write the date in my journal, I haven't really journaled, have I? I feel like I'm just gaming my own system.
In the short term, maybe. But in the long term, you've preserved the habit. The hardest part of ADHD is the restart cost. If you stop for 3 days, it takes a monumental effort to start again. If you do the MVR for those 3 days, you never actually stopped. You kept the momentum at 1% instead of 0. 1% is infinitely easier to build on than 0. Think of it as keeping the engine idling rather than turning it off and letting it freeze in the winter.
Let's apply this to the foundational habits, planning, diarizing, morning routines, and evening reviews. These are the 4 horsemen of ADHD frustration, but they're also the things that provide the most relief when they work.
Let's start with planning. Traditional time blocking, where you say from 10 to 11, I will do email, is often a disaster for ADHD. We have time blindness. We don't perceive the passage of time the same way. An hour feels like 5 minutes when we're hyper-focused and an eternity when we're bored. A rigid schedule is a recipe for guilt.
If you plan a rigid day and the first task runs over by 15 minutes, the whole schedule is broken, and the ADHD brain often just gives up on the rest of the day. It's called plan collapse syndrome. Instead of rigid blocks, we recommend time anchors and the rule of 3.
Plan collapse syndrome describes my entire life. If I get a phone call at 10 a.m. that I wasn't expecting, my brain basically says, well, Tuesday is over, might as well go look at those Victorian pipes again. How do time anchors stop that? Does it give me permission to keep going?
Time anchors are the non-negotiables. A doctor's appointment, a school pickup, a recording session. You build the rest of your day around those islands of certainty. And then you only pick 3 essential tasks. Just 3. Anything else is a bonus. It's about creating a buffer zone around your tasks.
And you don't assign them to a specific time. You assign them to a window. In the morning window, between my coffee anchor and my lunch anchor, I will do task A. This gives your brain the flexibility to find the right moment of focus without the pressure of a ticking clock. If task A takes longer, you don't fail. The schedule, you just adjust the window.
Only 3? I have a list of 42 things right now. If I only do 3, the world ends. My boss will notice, the bills won't get paid, and the anteater will run out of high-quality ants.
No, if you try to do 42, you get paralyzed, do 0, and then the world ends while you're playing Tetris. If you do the top 3, you've moved the needle on the things that actually matter. It's about reducing the paralysis of choice. When you have 42 items, your brain treats buy milk and finish project proposal with the same level of urgency, which is exhausting.
And those 3 things need to be diarized. Now, when we say diarizing, we don't necessarily mean a Dear Diary reflection. We mean an external memory system. Your brain is for having ideas, not for holding them. Every piece of information you try to keep in your working memory is like a program running in the background of a computer, slowing down the processor. Eventually, the computer crashes.
Write it down, immediately. If it's not in the system, it doesn't exist. But don't just write taxes. That's too big. Write gather W-2 forms. Make the entry an action, not a project. If the entry is a project, your brain will see it and immediately look for a Victorian pipe to research instead.
I have a question about the writing it down part. I write things down on sticky notes, but then the sticky notes become part of the furniture. I stop seeing them. It's like my brain develops an immunity to the reminder. I have a yellow square on my monitor that has been there for 6 months. I have no idea what it says anymore.
That's environmental fading. It's a huge issue. Your brain is so good at seeking novelty that it eventually filters out anything static. This is why we recommend changing the color of your notes or the location of your list every few days. Or, better yet, use a point of performance reminder, something that moves or makes a sound right when you need to see it. If the note is always in the same spot, it becomes invisible.
This leads to the evening review. This is probably the most impactful habit for an ADHD person, but it's the one they're most likely to skip because they're exhausted. But the truth is, a good morning routine starts the night before. If you wake up and have to decide what to do, you've already lost the morning.
The brain sweep is essential. Before you try to sleep, you dump everything in your head onto paper. All the, oh no, I forgot to buy milk, or I need to email the contractor thoughts. If you don't get them out, they'll keep your brain in a state of high alert all night. It's like closing all the open tabs on your browser so the computer can actually sleep.
I do that, and then I see the list and get so stressed I can't sleep anyway. My brain starts trying to solve the problems at 2 a.m. I'm lying there mentally drafting the email to the contractor instead of resting.
That's because you're looking at it as a to-do list for right now. The brain sweep isn't a to-do list, it's a holding pen. You're telling your brain, I see this, it's safe, we will deal with it tomorrow. You have to explicitly tell yourself, the job of nighttime Hilberts is just to capture. The job of daytime Hilberts is to execute. And then, you do your MVR evening review. What is the one thing that must happen tomorrow? Just one.
And you set up your launch pad. This is a classic ADHD strategy. You put your keys, your wallet, your bag, and your shoes by the door. You're lowering the activation energy for the next morning. You're saving your precious morning executive function for things that matter rather than a frantic 30-minute search for your keys. If your keys are in the same spot every day, you don't have to think to find them.
Which brings us to the morning routine itself. Forget the 5 a.m. club nonsense. An ADHD morning routine should be about momentum, not performance. It's about one non-negotiable action that creates a cascade effect. It's the first domino.
For me, it's 1 glass of water. If I drink the water, I've started a sequence. It's a physical signal to my body that the day has begun. From there, I can move to the next thing. But if I don't do the water, I don't beat myself up. I just start again the next day. The sequence is water, meds, coffee. If I get those 3, the morning is a success.
What about the morning fog? Sometimes I wake up and I literally can't remember what my routine is supposed to be, even if I wrote it down. My brain feels like it's full of cotton wool until at least 10 a.m.
That's where you need a visual sequence. Put a literal list, laminated if you have to, on the bathroom mirror. Step 1, water. Step 2, meds. Step 3, put on glasses. Don't make your foggy morning brain do any thinking. Just follow the pictures or the list. It's like an instruction manual for being a human.
We also have to talk about the dopamine menu. This is a concept from Jessica McCabe at How to ADHD. Since our brains need stimulation to function, we should pair boring habits with high dopamine activities. This is often called temptation bundling. You're essentially bribing your brain to do the hard stuff.
Like eating chocolate while I do my taxes. Because I could get behind that.
Maybe. Or listening to a high-energy podcast while you fold laundry. Or body doubling, where you just have someone else in the room, or on a video call while you work. The presence of another person provides a social pressure that helps with task initiation. It's why some people can only get work done in coffee shops.
There are actually websites now, like FocusMate, where you can book a 50-minute session with a stranger just to sit on camera and work silently together. It sounds weird, but for an ADHD brain, it's like magic. It provides just enough external structure to keep the prefrontal cortex engaged. You feel like you're being watched, so you stay on task.
I've actually done that. But I spent the whole time wondering what was on the shelf behind the other person. I was zooming in to see if they had the same Victorian plumbing book I do.
That's okay. Even if you're distracted, the fact that you're on the clock with someone else usually keeps you from wandering off to the kitchen to make a sandwich. It's about working with your brain's architecture, not against it. We've been taught that discipline means doing things the hard way. But for us, discipline means being smart enough to make things easy.
It's about shifting from I should be able to do this to how can I make this unavoidable. If you need to take your meds, put the bottle on top of your phone. You can't reach the phone without moving the meds. That's not a lack of discipline. That's a brilliant engineering solution for a distracted brain. You're outsmarting your future self.
Let's talk about some specific takeaways for people listening. We don't want this to be just another thing you listen to and then forget. We want to actually bridge that gap between knowing and doing.
Right. Actionable insight number 1. Implement one if-then intention this week. Pick one thing you keep forgetting. If I finish my dinner, then I will put my plate directly into the dishwasher. Don't aim for cleaning the kitchen, just the plate. Make it so small that the wall of offal doesn't even have time to form.
Actionable insight number 2. Habit stacking. Find a habit you already do, like making coffee, and stack a tiny new habit onto it. While the coffee is brewing, I will check my calendar for the day. It takes 30 seconds, but it grounds your day. And remember the MBR. If you just open the calendar and look at one thing, you've succeeded. The goal is the opening of the calendar, not the perfect execution of the day.
Actionable insight number 3. Create your minimum viable evening review. It should take less than 2 minutes. One brain sweep, one must-do task for tomorrow, and setting out your keys. If you do nothing else, do that. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to reduce the friction for tomorrow's version of you. Think of it as a gift to your future self.
And if you want a guide for this, we've put together an ADHD habit formation worksheet in the show notes at myweirdprompts.com. It walks you through the if-then formulas and helps you define your own MVRs. We've even included a section for dopamine pairing ideas. It's designed specifically for brains that hate worksheets.
I'll try it. I'll try the glasses stack. After I put on my glasses, I will write down one thing I need to do. Although, knowing my luck, the anteater will have hidden my pen by then. He's very stealthy when it comes to stationery.
That's the spirit, Hilbert. It's about the attempt. Even if it fails, you're learning how your brain works. If the anteater hides the pen, then the next if-then is, if I can't find a pen, I will use the voice memo on my phone. You iterate. You don't quit. You just adjust the system.
Next episode, we're going to dive into tech that actually works and tech that doesn't. We're going to look at the apps that actually help ADHD brains and the ones that are just digital clutter. We'll talk about hardware, automation, and how to set up your digital environment to prevent distractions. We'll look at why notifying isn't the same as reminding.
I'm looking forward to that one. I have some strong opinions on productivity apps that are actually just fancy ways to procrastinate. Most of them are just to-do list role-playing. You spend 3 hours setting up a system you'll never use again.
Oh, I have a folder full of those. I call it the folder of broken dreams. I spend more time setting up the tags and the color coding than I do actually doing the tasks. It's very satisfying for about an hour, and then I never opened the app again.
We'll sort through that folder next time, Hilbert. Before we go, we need to give you your homework.
Yes, Hilbert, your assignment for this week is to define your minimum viable morning routine. It can only have 3 steps, and the whole thing must take less than 5 minutes. Use the if-then logic for at least one of those steps. We'll check in on your progress at the start of the next episode.
5 minutes. I can barely find my socks in 5 minutes. Usually, I'm spinning in circles wondering where the left one went.
That's why it's minimum viable. If you can't find your socks, the routine still counts if you do the other 2 things. Maybe step 1 is put on glasses, step 2 is drink water, and step 3 is check the calendar. Even if you're barefoot, those 3 things set the tone. Socks are optional for a minimum viable morning.
And for everyone listening, try this along with Hilbert. Pick your MVR, keep it small, keep it simple, and stop beating yourself up for having a brain that works differently. Your brain isn't broken, it just needs a different set of instructions. It needs a custom manual.
Big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power the generation of this show. Their serverless infrastructure is what allows us to keep exploring these weird prompts and deep dives without our own systems crashing under the weight of the data.
And thanks as always to our producer Hilbert Flumingtop, even if he is currently being glared at by a very hungry anteater. This has been My Weird Prompts. If you're enjoying the show, a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify helps us reach more people who might be struggling with these same walls of awful. It really does make a difference in the algorithms, helping other neurospicy brains find us.
Find us at myweirdprompts.com for the worksheet and the full archive. We'll see you in part 2, where we'll tackle the digital distraction monsters and the folder of broken dreams.
Stay curious and be kind to your brain.
Bye, everyone.
I'm going to go find my pen. And maybe some anteater-proof socks. Wish me luck, I'm going to need it.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We shake